The morning everything changed started like any other. Jessica Thompson was pouring her third cup of coffee in the Pentagon's break room when the sky turned purple. At first, she thought it was a storm. The Weather Service had predicted rain. But storms didn't usually make the building's quantum sensors scream. "Officer Thompson." Colonel Roberts burst through the door, his usually pristine uniform wrinkled, as if he'd slept in it. "The Joint Chiefs need you in the war room. Now." She didn't ask questions. 6 years of military intelligence had taught her that questions wasted time. The coffee cup clattered in the sink as she followed him through the maze of high-security corridors. The war room was already packed when they arrived. Every screen showed the same image. Massive crystalline ships emerging from what looked like tears in space itself. They moved with an impossible grace, their surfaces refracting sunlight into rainbow cascades across Earth's atmosphere. Beautiful, if you could forget, they were probably here to kill everyone. 17 minutes ago, these objects entered our solar system, General Michael Hayes announced, his voice cutting through the murmur of worried conversations. 10 minutes ago, they bypassed every defense system we have as if they weren't there. And 3 minutes ago, they sent this. The central screen flickered. A figure appeared, humanoid, but wrong in ways that made Jessica's brain hurt. Its skin was like liquid mercury, and its eyes were clusters of geometric shapes that kept rearranging themselves. "People of Earth," the being's voice resonated in perfect English, though its mouth, if that's what it was, didn't move. "We are the Kraxan Empire. For 10,000 years, we have brought order to the chaos of space. Your world has been chosen for integration into our perfect society." Jessica watched as the alien's form shifted, growing larger, more intimidating. "You have 24 hours to surrender your world and submit to our guidance. Resistance is not only futile, it is illogical. We have conquered 300 star systems. We have ended wars that raged for millennia. We have brought peace to countless worlds." The screen split, showing scenes from other planets, cities of crystal and light, beings of all descriptions bowing before Kraxan overlords. And then, the other scenes, worlds burning, civilizations reduced to ash. "These are the worlds that chose poorly," the alien continued. "We trust Earth will make the wiser choice. You have 24 hours. The transmission cut off, leaving the room in stunned silence. Jessica's mind was already racing, analyzing every detail. The Kraxans' technology was centuries beyond Earth's. At least, beyond what they showed publicly, but something in their message nagged at her. "They're lying," she said, loud enough to draw out every eye in the room. "Or at least not telling the whole truth." General Hayes raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "They're ships, sir. They're designed to intimidate, to overwhelm. But look at the positioning." She stepped forward, manipulating the tactical display. "They're arranged in a perfect defensive formation. If they're so superior, why are they so concerned about defense?" The general's eyes narrowed as he studied the display. "Continue." "And their message. It's too perfect. The English, the cultural references in their imagery. They've been studying us, probably for years. You don't study something you plan to simply crush." A slow smile spread across Hayes's face. "They're afraid of something," he said. "And I think I know what it is." He turned to his staff. "Get me Admiral Morrison. Now. And someone wake up the president. Tell them." He paused, looking at the alien ships through the window. "Tell them humanity just got its biggest opportunity yet." As alarms began blaring across the globe, Jessica realized something that would later prove prophetic. The Kraxan had made the classic mistake of every failed empire in human history. They'd given their opponents time to think, plan, and prepare. And humans, when backed into a corner, had a habit of doing the impossible. Admiral Jack Morrison stood in the command center of Operation Phantom Base, carved deep within the heart of Ceres. The massive holographic display before him showed Earth's solar system in perfect detail, with the Kraxan fleet represented as a web of red points surrounding his home planet. Behind his stern expression, a fire burned, the same fire that had driven him since that terrible day on Mars. "Status report on the Ghost Fleet," he commanded, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. Commander Rachel Winters, his second in command, stepped forward. "All 7,000 ships are powered up and ready, sir. Quantum stealth systems are operating at peak efficiency. The Kraxan haven't detected a thing." Morrison allowed himself a small smile. For 15 years, they'd hidden their true fleet in plain sight. While the world watched their outdated ships perform clumsy maneuvers in Earth orbit, they'd been building something revolutionary. Every failed space mission had been a cover, every budget overrun a disguise for funding their real operations. "Show me the Mars Memorial," he said quietly. A section of the hologram shifted, showing the red planet and the small monument that stood where the first human colony had once been, where his family had been. The Kraxan weren't the first alien contact humanity had experienced, just the first public one. "Sir," Winters interrupted his thoughts. "Message from Earth Command. They're ready to begin Phase 1. Morrison straightened his uniform. "Put them through." General Hayes's face appeared on the main screen. "Jack, tell me we're ready. These bastards just demonstrated their weapons on an uninhabited Pacific island. There's a hole in the ocean 3 miles deep." "We're ready, Michael," Morrison replied. "The Ghost Fleet is armed and waiting. But there's something you need to know." He nodded to Winters, who brought up a new display. "We've been analyzing their shield frequencies. They're using a triple-phased quantum barrier, exactly like the technology that destroyed Mars Colony." The general's face hardened. "You're saying they're the ones who did it, or at least they supplied the weapons. This isn't just about saving Earth anymore. It's about justice." Hayes nodded grimly. "How long can your stealth systems hold?" "Long enough. The real question is whether Dr. Walker's team has the quantum disruptors ready. Without those, even our advanced ships won't stand a chance against their numbers." Walker just reported in. "They're ahead of schedule." Hayes managed a grim smile. Apparently, fear of alien invasion is one hell of a motivator for her scientists. Morrison turned to study the tactical display again. The hidden fleet was positioned perfectly. Clusters of ships concealed within the asteroid belt, behind Earth's moon, and in the gravitational shadows of every major planet. Years of preparation, all for this moment. "Begin Operation Scattered Thunder," he ordered. "All ships power up primary systems, but maintain stealth protocols. Tactical teams, begin targeting solutions for every Kraxan vessel. I want multiple vectors on each target." Around him, the command center erupted into controlled activity. Officers moved with practiced precision, each one knowing their role in humanity's greatest military operation. "Sir," Winters called out. "Message from Lieutenant Martinez's infiltration teams. They're in position throughout the Kraxan fleet, awaiting your signal." Morrison took a deep breath, touching the small hologram of Mars one last time. "Send word to Earth. Tell them the Ghost Fleet is ready." He turned to face his crew, his voice carrying across the command center. "For 15 years, we've hidden in the shadows. We've watched our old ships bump into each other like drunk cadets, while we built the most advanced fleet in human history. The Kraxan think they're dealing with a primitive species that can barely reach its own moon." He smiled, and there was steel in it. "Let's show them just how wrong they are." The hidden fleet began to move, still cloaked, still invisible. 7,000 ships, each a masterpiece of human engineering and deception, slipped through the solar system like ghosts through a graveyard. The clock was ticking, and humanity's counterattack was about to begin. Dr. Amanda Walker's underground laboratory looked like a cross between a quantum computing center and a military bunker, 3 miles beneath the Pacific Ocean. Her team had spent the last 5 years unraveling the greatest scientific discovery in human history. Not that the Kraxan would ever believe humans capable of such a thing. "Run the simulation again," she ordered, her green eyes fixed on the holographic display where quantum particles danced in impossible patterns. "And this time, push it to failure." Her chief engineer, Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, nodded. "Running quantum disruption test 2847, pushing beyond theoretical limits." The air hummed with energy as their quantum matrix spun up. On the display, simulated Kraxan communications networks appeared as webs of light, each connection a perfect example of quantum entanglement. Beautiful, efficient, and completely vulnerable. "They think they've mastered it," Amanda murmured, watching the test progress. "They've used quantum entanglement for so long they've forgotten its fundamental flaw." The laboratory door hissed open, and General Hayes strode in, accompanied by 2 Secret Service agents. "Dr. Walker, please tell me you have good news. The President is about to address the nation, and we need something to give people hope." Amanda held up a hand, still watching the simulation. The quantum web was beginning to vibrate as their disruptor field took effect. Then, like a symphony reaching its crescendo, the entire network collapsed. "Test successful," Marcus announced. "Complete quantum communication failure in 3.7 seconds. "Better than last time," Amanda said, finally turning to Hayes. "General, what do you know about quantum entanglement?" Hayes frowned. "It's what the Kraxan use for faster-than-light communication. Supposedly unbreakable." "Exactly. They've built their entire empire on it. Every ship, every weapon, every system relies on quantum networks." She gestured to a smaller display showing the Kraxan fleet. "But they've made a critical mistake. They assumed that because we still use radio waves and light-speed communication, we never understood quantum entanglement." She led him to a sealed chamber where a small device pulsed with blue light. "This is the quantum disruptor matrix. 2 years ago, we discovered that quantum entanglement has a fatal flaw. When multiple entangled particles are forced to interact in specific ways, they don't just break their connection. They create a cascade effect." "In English, Doctor." Amanda smiled. "We can turn their greatest strength into a catastrophic weakness. One small disruption spreads through their entire network, like a row of dominoes. When this hits their fleet, every quantum-based system will fail simultaneously. Communications, weapons, even their advanced navigation systems." Marcus stepped forward. "We've already mass-produced thousands of these devices. They're being loaded into the stealth satellites as we speak." Hayes' eyes widened as he understood. That's why Admiral Morrison wanted those satellites in position. They're not just for show. Exactly. Amanda brought up a new display, showing the satellite network. The Kraxan are so convinced of their superiority that they haven't even scanned for our primitive technology. Each satellite carries a piece of the disruption matrix. When activated together, their entire fleet goes dark, Hayes finished. "How long will the effect last?" "Long enough. They'll try to reestablish their quantum networks, but each attempt will trigger another cascade failure. We're not just breaking their communications, we're denying them their most basic technology." A junior officer burst into the lab. "General, Admiral Morrison reports the Ghost Fleet is in position. They're awaiting the signal." Hayes looked at Amanda. "Dr. Walker, is your team ready?" She picked up the quantum disruptor, its blue light reflecting in her determined eyes. "We've been ready for 2 years, General. We were just waiting for the right moment." As klaxons began to sound throughout the facility, Amanda couldn't help but smile. The Kraxan were about to learn a harsh lesson. Never underestimate a species that still remembers how to fight without advanced technology. Sometimes, the most primitive solutions are the most effective. High above Earth, Supreme Commander Vexthor of the Kraxan Empire watched the planet's pitiful defense satellites with amusement. His bridge crew had been monitoring the primitive radio chatter, filled with panic and confusion. These humans were even more backward than intelligence had suggested. Supreme Commander, his sensor officer called out. Another of their satellites just suffered a malfunction. That's the 23rd in the past hour. Vexthor's crystalline features shifted in what passed for a smile. Let them flounder. Their technology is so unstable, they can't even maintain basic orbit. Record everything. This will make an excellent training example for future conquest fleets. In the Pentagon's Strategic Command Center, Jessica Thompson watched the Kraxan's reaction through specialized sensors. They're buying it, sir. They think our satellite network is falling apart due to technical failures. General Hayes nodded, then activated his secure link to the underground facility. Dr. Walker, are all disruptor units in position? Confirmed. Amanda's voice came through clearly. Each malfunctioning satellite has successfully deployed its quantum matrix. We're ready to initialize the network on your command. Hayes checked the mission clock. 18 hours until the ultimatum expired. Admiral Morrison. Status of the Ghost Fleet. All ships are in attack position. Cloaking systems holding steady. The Kraxan haven't detected a single vessel. Morrison's voice was calm, but there was an edge of anticipation to it. Lieutenant Martinez reports his teams are ready to begin internal sabotage the moment we strike. Hayes took a deep breath. Very well. Dr. Walker, you may begin the attack sequence. In her underground lab, Amanda initiated the program they'd spent years perfecting. Quantum disruption network activating. Synchronizing all units. She watched as the status indicators turned green one by one. Preparing for cascade effect in 3, 2, 1. Above Earth, Vexthor was about to order another scan of the planet when his bridge erupted into chaos. Every display flickered and died simultaneously. The quantum core that powered their advanced systems began emitting a high-pitched whine. Report, he demanded, but his officers were too busy fighting with their dead consoles. The emergency quantum backup activated automatically and failed just as spectacularly as the main system. Impossible, his chief engineer gasped. All quantum systems are experiencing total failure. The entanglement network. It's not just breaking down, it's being actively disrupted. In the hidden command center, Morrison watched as the massive Kraxan fleet suddenly went dark. Their elegant formation began to break apart as ships lost their advanced navigation systems. All Ghost Fleet units, this is Admiral Morrison. Operation Scattered Thunder is go. Weapons free, but remember your targets. We want their ships disabled, not destroyed. 7,000 advanced human vessels dropped their cloaking fields simultaneously, appearing like angels of death around the confused Kraxan fleet. Their first salvos were precisely targeted: communications arrays, secondary power systems, and weapon emplacements. Jessica Thompson's voice crackled over the command channel. Sir, we're detecting massive power fluctuations throughout the Kraxan fleet. They're trying to re-establish their quantum network, but each attempt is making things worse. Just as Dr. Walker predicted, Hayes said with grim satisfaction. They've relied on quantum technology for so long, they don't even have backup systems. On the Kraxan flagship, Vexthor watched in horror as human warships materialized from nowhere, their weapons already firing with deadly accuracy. His mighty fleet, terror of 1,000 star systems, was being systematically dismantled by a species that had barely reached their own moon. Send the alert to High Command, he ordered, then remembered they couldn't. Without quantum communications, they were limited to light speed, just like the primitives they'd mocked. As his ship shuddered under another precise hit, a terrible realization dawned. They hadn't been watching a primitive species struggle with technology. They'd been watching a masterclass in deception. Commander Rachel Winters stood at her station in the Ghost Fleet's command center, watching as Operation Broken Mirror unfolded across the holographic battle map. The human fleet moved in patterns that looked random to the untrained eye, but she knew better. Every shift and turn had been calculated using advanced chaos theory algorithms. Echo Squadron, execute pattern Hurricane 7, she ordered, her voice steady as she directed the dance of ships. Typhoon Group, begin your spiral attack run. Admiral Morrison watched from his command chair, a slight smile playing at his lips. Status of the Kraxan battle computers. Complete meltdown. Sir, a junior officer reported. Their tactical AI is attempting to predict our movements using standard combat algorithms. It's failing spectacularly. On the main display, they could see the Kraxan ships struggling to form traditional combat formations. But human vessels slipped through their lines like water through a sieve, each attack coming from an impossible angle. In the tactical analysis room of the Kraxan flagship, first strategist Zelkar was having the worst moment of his 300-year career. Impossible. Their attack patterns violate every known principle of space combat. His assistant projected another failed analysis onto the screen. Sir, they're using combat formations based on fluid dynamics and weather patterns. The tactical computer just crashed trying to calculate their next move. Zelkar watched in horror as a wing of human ships executed a perfect spiral maneuver, their energy weapons tracing helical patterns across 3 Kraxan dreadnoughts. The shots shouldn't have been possible. The firing solutions ignored basic laws of combat mathematics. Back on the Ghost Fleet command ship, Dr. Amanda Walker had joined the bridge crew. She stood before a specialized display showing the quantum disruption field's effects. The beauty of it is, they can't adapt, she explained to Morrison. Their entire military doctrine is built on predictable, mathematically perfect formations. We're using chaos as a weapon. Sierra Squadron, begin the thunderstorm sequence, Winters called out. The holographic display showed a group of human ships breaking apart, then reforming in a pattern that mimicked the electrical discharge of a lightning storm. Kraxan ships caught in the maneuver found their sensors overwhelmed, their weapons firing at phantoms. Lieutenant James Cooper, leading the Sierra Squadron, grinned as his ship dove through a gap in the Kraxan line that shouldn't have existed. Like my grandfather used to say, the perfect way to win isn't always the right way to win. The Kraxan fleet's formation continued to deteriorate. Their ships, designed for precise, coordinated warfare, found themselves fighting an enemy that moved like a natural disaster given form. Every time they adapted to one pattern, the humans would switch to something completely different. Sir, Winters called out, Lieutenant Martinez's teams report the internal sabotage is amplifying the confusion. The Kraxan can't tell which systems are failing from our attacks and which are being sabotaged from within. Morrison nodded. Implement Phase 2 of Broken Mirror. Let's show them what happens when you combine chaos theory with good old-fashioned human ingenuity. The battle map shifted as the Ghost Fleet reorganized. Ships began moving in fractal patterns, each squadron's movements influencing and amplifying the others. It was like watching a hurricane form in space, with human ships as the raindrops and lightning. They're trying to retreat, an officer announced, but their navigation systems can't plot a course through our formation. They're trapped in their own mathematical perfection. Commander Winters allowed herself a small smile as she issued the next set of orders. The Kraxan had spent millennia perfecting the art of war, making it into an elegant mathematical exercise. But they'd forgotten something crucial. Real warfare isn't about perfection. It's about adaptation, innovation, and sometimes about embracing the chaos. Lieutenant Jake Martinez had spent 3 years pretending to be a maintenance robot on the Kraxan flagship. 3 years of mindless servitude, keeping his face hidden behind an engineer's mask, learning every inch of their ship's systems. The Kraxan never suspected. After all, what advanced species would lower themselves to performing manual labor? "Checkmate team, sound off," he whispered into his quantum-shielded communicator. Around him, the massive engine room of the Kraxan flagship hummed with confused activity as engineers tried to restore their failed systems. "Rook standing by, lower deck secured," came Sergeant Sarah Cooper's voice. "Bishop in position, weapons control. Knight ready, command level access achieved. Pawn teams deployed throughout all sectors." Martinez smiled behind his mask. 200 human Special Forces operators, all disguised as maintenance droids, were about to reveal themselves across the Kraxan fleet. "Remember your training. Timing is everything." In the ship's main reactor chamber, a Kraxan engineer was shouting at what he thought was a maintenance drone. "You, help us stabilize the quantum core." Martinez stepped forward, his movements still mechanically precise. "Executing command," he said in the flat tone they'd all perfected. The engineer turned back to his work, never suspecting that the drone was about to do exactly the opposite. "All teams, execute Operation Ghost in the machine," Martinez ordered quietly. "Show them why you never trust a species that actually understands how things work." Across the flagship and throughout the entire Kraxan fleet, maintenance drones suddenly stopped their programmed tasks. Masks and outer shells were discarded, revealing Special Forces operators in advanced exosuits. "What is the meaning of this?" the chief engineer demanded, then froze as Martinez removed his mask, revealing a very human grin. "Just a little lesson in humility," Martinez replied, then moved with lightning speed. His exosuit, disguised under the drone shell for years, enhanced his strength and speed. The engineer was unconscious before he could raise an alarm. "Night team here," came the update. "Bridge crew is contained. You should see their faces. They can't believe they've been giving orders to humans for years." Throughout the ship, carefully planted charges began disabling critical systems. Not destroying. That would be too simple. Instead, they created cascading failures that would take hours to trace and repair, even if the Kraxan had their quantum systems working. "Sir," Sarah Cooper reported from the lower decks, "you won't believe what we found. They've got a secondary command center down here, completely untouched by the quantum disruption." "Perfect," Martinez replied. "Send the data to Admiral Morrison. That's probably how they destroyed the Mars colony." On the bridge of the Ghost Fleet flagship, Morrison received the intelligence with grim satisfaction. "Well done, Lieutenant. Now show them why Earth's Special Forces are the best in the galaxy." The infiltration teams worked with surgical precision, their years of preparation paying off. Every sabotaged system, every disabled weapon, had been carefully studied and practiced on secret training models built from stolen Kraxan schematics. "Rook team reporting success." Sarah's voice crackled. "Their backup communications array is down. They're running blind and deaf now." Martinez made his way through the chaos of the engine room, his team systematically disabling backup systems. The Kraxan engineers watched in horror as their simple maintenance drones revealed an understanding of their technology that should have been impossible. "You know what your biggest mistake was?" he asked the captured chief engineer. "You thought manual labor was beneath you, but that's how humans learn best, by taking things apart and putting them back together. We've had 3 years to learn every weakness in your ships." As alarms blared throughout the fleet, Martinez couldn't help but appreciate the irony. The Kraxan had conquered hundreds of worlds through superior technology and strategy, but they'd never faced an enemy who'd already infiltrated their ships, who'd spent years learning their systems from the inside out. They'd never faced humans. Second Officer Crickstall stood on the bridge of the Kraxan battlecruiser Eternal Dominion, watching their perfect military structure crumble in real time. The ship's commander had fallen silent 10 minutes ago, still staring at the display showing their magnificent fleet being systematically dismantled by human forces. "Sir," his weapons officer called out, voice trembling. "The flagship, they're lowering their shields." Through the main viewport, Krixtal watched as Supreme Commander Vexthor's massive vessel powered down its remaining systems. The unthinkable was happening. The highest-ranking officer in the fleet was surrendering. In the Pentagon's command center, Jessica Thompson tracked the developing situation. "Sir, we're detecting a significant change in Kraxan command protocols. Their neural networks are showing signs of confusion." General Hayes leaned forward. "Explain." "Their entire military structure is based on absolute obedience to superior officers. But with communications down, junior officers are being forced to make independent decisions. Their training never prepared them for this." Admiral Morrison's voice came through the command channel. "It's more than that. Look at their formation. Ships are breaking ranks not just individually, but in groups. Every time a superior officer surrenders, their entire command chain follows suit." On the Eternal Dominion, Krixtal faced the most difficult decision of his life. Their commander remained frozen, unable to process the collapse of their perfect system. The quantum network was dead, their advanced weapons were useless, and somehow, humans had appeared inside their ships, knowing exactly where to strike. "Sir," his navigation officer pleaded, "we need orders." For the first time in his career, Krixtal realized he would have to think for himself. The thought was terrifying and strangely liberating. "Open a channel to the nearest human vessel," he ordered. Use their primitive radio frequencies." In the Ghost Fleet's command center, Commander Winters tracked the spreading wave of surrenders. "It's like watching dominoes fall, sir. Each command group that surrenders triggers 3 more. Dr. Walker, still monitoring the quantum disruption network, added her analysis. "Their neural implants are actually working against them now. Without the quantum network to maintain hierarchy, the implants are causing decision paralysis in senior officers." Lieutenant Martinez, speaking from his position on the captured flagship, confirmed the theory. "The Kraxan around me are in shock. Their entire lives, they've never made a major decision without consulting the hierarchy. Now they're being forced to choose, fight and die for a broken system, or surrender and live with the shame." More and more Kraxan ships powered down their systems. Some tried to fight on, but their individual efforts were useless against the coordinated human attack. The Ghost Fleet moved with precise efficiency, disabling any vessels that still showed resistance. "Incoming transmission," an officer announced. "It's being broadcast on all frequencies, from the Kraxan flagship." Supreme Commander Vexthor's voice filled the command channel, sounding broken and bewildered. "To all Kraxan forces, the humans have proven. They have proven that our understanding of warfare, of technology, of everything was flawed. I hereby order all ships to stand down. The cost of our pride has already been too high." Jessica Thompson, monitoring the surrender's impact, noticed something remarkable. "Sir, the junior officers, they're responding faster than their superiors. It's like once they got permission to think independently, they immediately knew what to do." General Hayes nodded. "Of course they did. They're the ones who've been watching us up close, seeing how humans adapt and innovate. They knew we'd won before their leaders could accept it." As the hours ticked by, the surrender cascade continued. Ship after ship, squadron after squadron, the mighty Kraxan fleet laid down their arms. Their perfect military machine, built on unquestioning obedience and technological superiority, had been undone by a species that valued individual initiative and understood the power of apparent weakness. As the sun rose over the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the captured Kraxan flagship, now renamed New Dawn, Through the vast viewing port, he could see Earth shining below, still beautiful and untouched despite the battle that had raged around it. The mission clock showed 6 hours remaining on the original ultimatum, a deadline that now meant nothing. "Final status report," he requested, his voice steady despite the exhaustion of the past day. Commander Winters stepped forward, tablet in hand. "All 300 Kraxan vessels have been secured. Lieutenant Martinez's teams have complete control of their internal systems. Dr. Walker's quantum disruption network remains active, though we likely won't need it anymore." "And the other species?" Morrison asked, thinking of the non-Kraxan crew members they'd discovered throughout the fleet. "That's the most interesting part, sir," Jessica Thompson answered, having just arrived from Earth via transport shuttle. "Representatives from 27 former slave species have already requested diplomatic relations with Earth. They're calling us the Liberation Force." Morrison turned as General Hayes entered the bridge, accompanied by Dr. Walker and a tall, silver-skinned being, the former Supreme Commander Vex Thor, now a prisoner of war. "Your victory is complete," Vex Thor said, his geometric eyes shifting in complex patterns. "But I must know, how long had you been preparing for this?" "Since the day you destroyed our Mars colony," Morrison replied, watching the alien's reaction carefully. "Though you never knew we traced it back to you. That attack taught us we weren't ready for the galaxy. But instead of rushing to catch up, we chose to wait, to watch, to learn." While pretending to be primitive, Vex Thor realized every failed launch, every clumsy attempt at space travel, was a cover. Dr. Walker finished. "We knew someone had given our attackers advanced technology. It was just a matter of time before the source revealed itself." On one of the secondary screens, they could see the first diplomatic shuttles arriving from Earth. The United Nations had wasted no time in establishing contact with their new galactic neighbors. "Lieutenant Martinez reports from the lower decks," Winters announced. "They've secured access to the Kraxan's complete historical database. Star charts, technology specs, cultural information, everything we need to understand our place in the galaxy. And more importantly," Thompson added, "evidence of other empires that might threaten Earth. The Kraxan weren't the only ones out there." Morrison nodded, then turned to address the entire bridge crew. "What we achieved here today goes beyond military victory. We've proven that humanity's greatest strengths aren't our technology or our weapons, but our ability to adapt, to deceive when necessary, and to turn our apparent weaknesses into advantages. The story is already spreading through the galaxy," Hayes said, checking his communications device. "The empire that conquered 300 systems, defeated in a single day by a species they thought primitive. Every subjugated race, every oppressed world, will look to Earth now. And they'll learn," Dr. Walker added, "that true advancement isn't about having the most advanced technology. It's about understanding how to use whatever tools you have, whether quantum computers or simple radio waves." As if to emphasize her point, another group of ships appeared at the edge of the solar system, representatives from other galactic powers, arriving to witness the aftermath of the impossible victory. "Sir," Thompson called out, "we're receiving messages from everywhere. The galaxy wants to know how we did it." Morrison smiled, thinking of all the preparation, the years of hiding their true capabilities, the sacrifices made to maintain their deception. "Tell them the truth," he said. "Tell them we won, because we never forgot our history, never abandoned our primitive knowledge, and never believed that any species was truly superior to another." As Earth continued its eternal dance around the sun, the dawn of a new era truly began. Humanity had not only survived its first major galactic conflict, it had emerged as a force that would forever change the balance of power among the stars. The species that everyone had underestimated was now the one they all watched with a mixture of fear, respect, and wonder.